Welcome into SportsSource.tv in our overtime segment. I noticed out of the corner of my eye, Chuck bobbing his head down there. He's really happy to be here. Chuck Cavaleris, Mark Pankratz, Josh Ward, Bob Hodge, all with me here. We answer some of your questions that we got on Twitter today. Anything else you guys want to throw out that we didn't have a chance to follow up on? There was one thing that we were talking about on the show that we didn't get in that I wanted to follow up on in overtime, and I've forgotten what it was, and Mike Strange is gone, so it's gone. So you're not going to talk about that. Here's the first. Let's go through the Twitter questions I got. Is Holly Warlick getting the maximum effort from her team, or has she totally lost control?
She's not getting the maximum effort. I mean, you had a thing early in the season where she quits talking to them. I mean, they're not listening. If they're not listening to me, they're not trying hard enough.
I had no problem with that, by the way.
Well, I didn't have a problem with it, but to me, that speaks about the disconnect or the effort you're getting from your players. If what you're saying we're going to try, they're not listening, I just don't like that.
She's getting maximum effort? No. But I don't think the other option is lost complete control.
No. And that's what's
you lost two games by what, 1 point and 2 point this week? It's not like you're getting smoked every game.
But that's the hard part about this and what people jump to. It's either this where everything's dying, or it's this and everything is great. No, it's not either of those ever. I mean, even when you're winning. I mean, when we were with Coach Pearl and we're winning at the highest level of program, day in and day out, it was a grind to get to that point to be successful. It wasn't all, hey, we just show up and come to the games and we're going to win by 20. No, man, we're trying to get guys a class. We're trying to do things. I mean, so it's never that way. She hasn't lost them, no. She hasn't. They're not playing maximum effort. But somewhere in between, they got to get better.
I think we discussed it last week. When she didn't talk to the team, I think you're right. That's a great example of she feels like she can't get through to some of these players. At the same time, she's seen that from her old coach, Pat Summitt. Used to, okay, you're gonna have to wash your own uniforms and that kind of stuff. I think that was just everybody made too big of a deal out of that. I think. Let me ask Mark another question and get to you guys on the same topic. You've been around a lot of basketball teams. Some teams just don't get it. Some teams don't have the chemistry. I mean, John Calipari a few years ago, he had a team that didn't make the NCAA tournament, went to the NIT, went to play at Robert Morris and lost in the first round. And it was made up of future pros and NBA. I mean, some teams just don't get it. Do you think that could be the case here?
Yeah, and here's the thing about it too is we've saw it on the men's side where people are now saying, well, let's just start playing all these young guys, right? Let's play the backups. The young guys are going to be back next year. Well, no. Yeah. You have to set the foundation of your program. I don't care if you're a senior or you're a freshman. If you're going to do things the way that this program is built on, you deserve to play. And so Holly's going to do that with these players. If they're not going to listen to her and they're not going to have the culture, they might not figure it out. They might not make the NCAA tournament. They might struggle. But at the end of the day, they should be better for it next year because the foundation is continuing to build on what she believes is most successful to help them win.
Anything to add, guys?
Well, I was just going to add from a segment that y'all did during the show about what her future is. I disagree with everybody else. I think it's a little bit more tenuous than people think. I think there is a chance that if this team continues to slide downhill, that they make a change. I don't think it's as okay. She did this the first 3 years, so we'll bring her back. No, I just think times have changed now. You know, Vol for life may not be Vol for the end of the season. I mean, I think she'll make the end of the season, but I do think that it's enough negative out there that they could make a change.
I would say this is a classic example. It's not one thing. It's effort at times, but effort wasn't an issue in the fourth quarter against Kentucky when they're actually having to rally and they almost do and win. It's basketball IQ. It is getting it on the court, and maybe it is an example of, in the end, a bunch of reasons pile up to why they don't get it.
One thing that's interesting to me is this team was a much better shooting team last year with many of the same players, and this year they're just not shooting as well, which is unusual. You didn't expect them to come back and be worse shooting the ball, and they are. All right. Somebody asked, is Tennessee ever going to be a multi-sport champion under Dave Hart? Football's getting better, but everything else is falling off, this tweeter says. All other sports are either flat or backsliding. Will Tennessee ever be a multi-sport champion under Dave Hart?
Well, I mean, it depends on which sport. You know, softball is always up there, doesn't get very much attention. You know, I think it's hard for schools to get on that run where you're multi-sport. And would that be basketball and football? and oh, you're great in everything? Or is that the multi-sport champion that you want? I think Barnes needs more time, but I just think it's hard.
Yeah, I think you had an incredible run under Doug Dickey, which goes back to a point you made in the show that in terms of recruiting, you can get all these guys, but it's the one you don't get. Doug Dickey is remembered for failing at basketball.
Yeah.
Everything else over there was winning. He's building new facilities. They're winning across the board. People hated Doug Dickey, and part of it was he didn't do well at basketball, that's a good example of what you said earlier. Thoughts on Dave Hart as AD?
Yeah, overall, I'd say multiple championships. Sure, the sports that fans are most interested in, though, and those are the obvious ones.
A little more difficult.
Yeah, football and basketball to start out. And then you get to baseball, lady balls, and softball. I would say no.
I think they will. I think they've had this whole athletic department's had a lot of transition here the last 5-6 years, and they're getting more stability. And as that stability comes, it's going to lead to more championships, unless Twitter world starts saying fire everybody.
They're already saying that. And every school is saying that's just what happens now.
Let's be honest here, too. It's a situation Dave Hart inherited. It's not like you were a powerhouse in a lot of these other sports, and now all of a sudden you're just trying to fix football. I mean, several of these sports were really down, and they have been down for several years.
All right, next one. Love this one. What do you guys make of the rumor? I'll start with you, Josh. You're the recruiting guy.
All right.
And the talk radio guy, which means you're all about rumors.
That's right.
What do you make of the rumor that Butch Jones told Jonathan Kongbo to decommit, so on signing day he'll have a big splashy commitment?
That is good. That's new. No, I would say no to that one. Tennessee has been very. I think they've been very. They've put together a list of, okay, we want a guy to commit here, we want a guy to commit here. If it's the opening in Oregon in the summer, you want a guy to commit. I don't think you want a guy to decommit, open things up, take trips to Florida State, Ole Miss, USC, go onto their campuses as a non-committed player. That's a little bit too much by design. There's a lot of design in what they do. I'd be surprised if that's one. Although, that ice cream photo this week on social media that had us asking a lot of questions.
Obviously, you're more Scully than you are Mulder in terms of not believing the conspiracy theory. That same photo. One thing, as somebody who's done marketing before with anchor teams, and you've had some short guys, I've had to do this before, and you have them stand on a box. If you have somebody stand on a box, you got to photograph it to where you don't see the box. Butch Jones was behind Jonathan Kongbo on a box, so he was taller than Kongbo, and it's like, we see the box there. That doesn't help.
Maybe that's why they had the ice cream. Take away from the box.
Yeah.
Two very quick questions, and I remembered what we were discussing that kind of bled over into the start of a segment. We were talking about Tennessee natives, because we talked about it during the show in segment 4. If you're going to go back and look somewhere up above me on this website, click one of those, segment 4. We talked about all-time touchdown leader from the state of Tennessee is Jason Witten in the NFL. All-time games played leader by a Tennessee native in the NFL is Reggie White. We're talking about touchdown passes, and I said, well, Peyton Manning. Well, he's not from Tennessee. So my guess would be, who would be the all-time Tennessee native in terms of touchdown passes in the NFL? I would guess Chad Pennington.
I would have guessed Chad Pennington as well.
I don't know the answer. Is there anybody else I'm missing there?
Boy, Tennessee has not produced
natives.
a lot.
No, I wouldn't think
quarterbacks.
so. I wouldn't even think second wouldn't even be that close, to tell you the truth.
No relation to me, but just and the
Bobby
guy.
Scott.
No, he's a Georgia boy.
That's the reason he didn't play so hard.
That's right, Georgia. Bobby is one of the leaders in terms of always saying you need to get local kids. Tennessee guys play harder for the Orange. Bobby Scott from Ringgold, Georgia.
Rossville, Georgia.
Rossville. I'm sorry.
Rossville.
Well, the thing is, I think he grew up a Tennessee fan, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that kind of.
I mean, that's
we're
like-
gigging Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby sent me a text about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady last Sunday after the game. So I'll gig Bobby from now until the end of time over that one. All right. So we're thinking Chad Pennington. That's a guy that played against. He was on 2 of my division rivals of my Patriots. Used to scare the devil out of him. But boy, let me tell you, if that guy had not had the shoulder injuries, such a good player. No relation to me, so it's not saying that about a cousin. But he was just a really, really good player. Last one, we looked at the number of players that come out of Tennessee. When you look at that list, and we talked about it a little bit, but let's expand on it. When you look at that list, is Tennessee, now that you're getting more players that go to BCS level schools or FBS level schools, Power 5 level schools. I'll get it. I'll just keep saying it so I get it. Now that you're getting more of those guys, should Tennessee be focusing more in-state than they have been in the past? I mean, Butch Jones has done a great job, but they're only, I think he's got 2 commitments in the top 10 this year. And there's a kid out of Oak Ridge that's still uncommitted, but he's not going to be a Tennessee guy, it doesn't look like. So you're only going to have 2 of the top 10 this year. Should they be focusing more on Tennessee from what you saw on the board earlier today? Or are they doing it about right? We discussed it earlier, but we got more time now.
I think they do it right. I mean, I think they focus on the kids that they think can come in here and help them. And if you look at some of the kids over the course of time that have been top 10 players in Tennessee, Tennessee has passed on them, I would guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, more so than they have passed on Tennessee. So I think Tennessee is smart enough, and Butch Jones is smart enough to realize this guy fits our need. And it's funny. You go back to when Chad Pennington was playing football in Knoxville, and I was arguing Tennessee ought to recruit him. Well, who was the quarterback at Tennessee? Who would he have? He would play behind Peyton Manning. So sometimes there's a good guy there, and you just go, you know what? He doesn't help us. We've already got guys here. So I think they do it right.
Yeah, I think they have as well. This year, now we'll see if the evaluations are correct, but they looked at a lot of if you look at the top 10, 12 guys, they're going to Power 5 schools, so they are coveted by some, but Tennessee didn't evaluate them at that level. The last couple of years, and I think in 2017, Tennessee will go after the in-state guys pretty heavily.
Here, one reason why you have to recruit guys, even if they're not really going to fit your system, you have to at least show them a little bit of love, is because if they're coming from really good programs and they can spit out really good players, the kid that's a freshman that is seeing Alabama, Georgia, all these other teams come in and recruit them, they're more or less going to start watching that program just because one of their own is now playing for Alabama or Georgia. So it's a fine line because all your energy, majority of your energy has to go for guys that you actually want, but you still got to send an assistant once in a while to get into those programs who are going to produce really good players, because the next wave of talent, if they are a Tennessee guy that you want, you got to already have some relationship with them.
Well, you also need a relationship with the coach.
Yeah.
I mean, because those coaches will have, and a lot of those guys play a role in terms of where they steer some of these kids. So obviously, even if a guy didn't have somebody, you want to be there and get to know the guy and have a good relationship
And see, that
with
was
him.
one of the big knocks on Derek Dooley. Going back to him, the Chattanooga Times Free Press did the story that they hadn't even visited 65 high schools, in the state of Tennessee. And so when you do have a kid coming up, even if he's a freshman, maybe you're looking at a senior. If you're in it for the long term, you've got a relationship there. And plus the mid-state, watch the mid-state, right, Josh?
Right.
You've got some key players coming up in there that you want to be recruiting and signing.
One last interesting note that I'll throw out has nothing to do with anything. Well, sort of. When I was looking up these college lists and who sent the most to the pros, there was a stat that I found that showed which high schools in America have the most current NFL players. I found this unbelievable. St. Thomas Aquinas in South Florida, we all hear about it. Opening day roster this year in the NFL, opening day rosters, 15 players from that one high school.
Wow.
In other words, go recruit St. Thomas Aquinas. That's where you got to have your
there.
It's
you
right
need
there.
a,
Fort Lauderdale,
you
right?
need a relationship
Fort
there.
Lauderdale area.
Just impressive. All right, that was a weird overtime segment. A lot of goofy stuff thrown at you. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next Sunday, 11 a.m. WATE 6. Josh will be back with us to break down signing day. Mark will be back with us to talk about the Tennessee-Kentucky and Tennessee-Arkansas games. And I guess I'll allow Chuck and Bob to be here too, if they'll have me.
Appreciate
if they'll return. All right. See you next Sunday, 11 a.m., Channel 6.